inspiration in a turbulent era. This isn't just our theme for this year's conference, this is our reality. We find ourselves in a world where we're facing increasing climate, or accelerating climate impacts, increased resource strains, shifting or increasingly dynamic geopolitical relations, and public and political perceptions about climate change, which are unfortunately moving us further and further away from ambitious climate action. The stakes couldn't be higher, and yet our operating space in terms of finances and political will seem to be shrinking. Now this might seem stark, and I guess it is, but there's still a lot that we can advance and achieve. And that's why this year's BCSE, as I hope we try to do every year, really tries to look at this turbulent reality that we're in and identify what we can actually do. So we'll be looking at this year at some really timely themes. For example, how the demand for critical raw materials that we need for a green transition are going to, or are already reshaping national security and geopolitical dynamics. How better or more innovative climate finance can better access and reach the most vulnerable communities in fragile states. How we can get better at our metrics of success. How can we actually show that integrated climate security programming actually works, what we're trying to do is actually impactful. And how we can reconcile the trade-off between speed versus sustainability when it comes to rebuilding post-conflict in the face of a changing climate. So this year's conference has three objectives: to promote concrete approaches to advancing climate security around the world, to advance policy coherence, both across sectors and across borders, and to generate collaboration and actionable recommendations necessary for implementation. So the urgency is clear, and so too are our opportunities. And I hope our discussions today will bolster our courage, our conviction, and also our creativity to be able to act decisively and ambitiously in the context that we find ourselves in, as difficult as it might be. So I invite you to share your reflections and your insights, your highlights from today's discussions using social media, using Blue Sky and LinkedIn. The hashtag is BCSE 2025. You can see our social media handles on the screen now, and also in the information section of the conference app. But before we begin our first session, it is my great honor to invite His Excellency Dr. Geza Andreas von Geyer, the State Secretary of the German Federal Foreign Office, to give us the opening impulse and set the tone for today's discussions. Afterwards, I will leave you in the very capable hands of Swati Veeravalli, the climate security expert known to many of you in this room, I'm sure, who will be our MC and will be guiding us expertly through the rest of today's programs. So thank you again, and I look forward to a productive and inspiring conference. Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Excellencies, distinguished guests. A very warm welcome to all of you, to the Federal Foreign Office, especially to our international guests. Thanks for joining us for the 7th edition of the Berlin Climate and Security Conference. My special thanks to the Adelphi team for the excellent preparations and organizations, and my gratitude to all partner organizations and speakers who will be contributing. Climate conflict and cooperation in the turbulent era. The motto of this conference perfectly describes what is at stake. Yes, the world is increasingly fractured and complex. Wars and conflicts seem to grow in number and size. The principles of the rule of law are under attack, and so is multilateralism. And climate change is a stark reality today. Heavy floods, intensified storms, record-breaking heat waves, and long-lasting droughts cause damage, ecological and economical loss, displacement and loss of life. I would like to start with a more general remark on what priority we give here in the Federal Foreign Service to climate change. As governments, we have to face all the mentioned challenges, climate, conflict, instability, at the same time. In this most complex reality of our globalized world, we have to define our interests, name our priorities, and design appropriate policy. The Chancellor and the Foreign Minister have set 3 key goals for our German foreign and security policy. Those are security, freedom, and prosperity. Now, climate change directly and negatively affects all these 3 goals: security, freedom, and prosperity. That is why a proactive climate policy must be an essential part of our solutions. This foreign ministry, together with the other branches of the government, will continue to promote a proactive climate policy, the advocate for a competitive green transition. And we are convinced that especially the nexus climate security, so what we discussed today, the nexus climate security has to be given the priority it deserves. Now I have 4 messages I would like to share with you this morning. First, for many years I dealt with security policy very intensively in the last years as ambassador of my country to NATO. And often I heard the proverb, the urgent always beats the important. The urgent always beats the important. When it comes to climate change, we cannot accept that. Of course, there are immediate and pressing challenges like Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, which require our full attention, but we cannot afford to lose sight of the systemic risks of climate change. These risks threaten to create or to intensify conflicts. These risks impact local, regional, and international stability. They create enormous additional costs. They do impact international peace at large. Or, viewed through the prism of our German foreign policy goals I mentioned before, by climate change, our security, freedom, and prosperity are put at risk. We have to deal with both, with the urgent as well as with the important. Secondly, the nexus climate change security will gain even more importance. Our German Foreign Intelligence Service, BND, recently published our National Climate Risk Assessment, which clearly states, I quote, anyone thinking about security needs to think about climate as well. Anyone thinking about security needs to think about climate as well. To properly understand what the challenge is about, we need everyone on board. Diplomats, military and security specialists, as well as first responders, climate negotiators, peace-building and humanitarian workers, energy and agricultural experts. And of course, we need this very collaborative and interdisciplinary approach and spirit internationally as well. That's why I'm glad that all of you are here today. Earlier this month, for example, the NATO Climate Change and Security Center of Excellence in Montreal hosted the Climate Security Summit, focusing focusing on making our militaries more climate resistant and resilient. During that summit, the Canadian Defense Minister highlighted, I quote, "Investing in our ecosystems is strategic preparedness. It is national defense and it's national security." End of quote. I couldn't agree more. This leads me to my third message. We have to speed up getting from analysis to action. A good understanding of what climate crisis and security, the motto of today's conference, really means will, of course, best advance opportunities for very concrete cross-border collaboration and for holistic solutions. Here are just a few examples. My ministry just launched the pioneering Investing for Peace initiative, a blended finance platform. It's meant to encourage more investments in fragile states where climate change often exacerbates conflicts. It pools donor funds with private sector contributions from development finance institutions to support local enterprises. These investments address root causes of conflict, such as climate change-induced food insecurity. Or, already in 2020, we presented the Weathering Risk Initiative, which generates crucial understanding about climate and environmental impacts on human security. There are a multitude of other initiatives that are usable and operational. We altogether have to speed up implementing the very concrete projects and results which make a difference, not the processes as such. Finally, my fourth message: worldwide cooperation is key. The security implications of climate change have been front and center of our policies at the United Nations for a long time, in the Security Council and beyond. Together with Nauru, we, Germany, co-chair the UN Group of Friends on Climate and Security. And it's great to see a growing number of members joining, currently 78 states. Somalia has announced to become our newest member. Somalia's extensive experience will be of high value for our joint engagement in New York and beyond. Thanks a lot for your engagement for this. Minister Jama, you're with us today. Thanks a lot. Through our support of the UN Climate Security Mechanism, climate and security advisors in UN missions have become key facilitators to integrate climate aspects in peace-building and stabilization efforts. It's fantastic that many of them are here today to share their expertise. As a German government, we are also proud of our cooperation with small islands and development states, for example, through our support of the Raising Nations Initiative and the Coalition for Addressing Sea Level Rise and its Existential Threats, CSAT, to strengthen those countries' resilience to climate change. Our Foreign Minister has, at the United Nations General Assembly last month, announced a €5 million contribution to the Pacific Resilience Facility. Furthermore, I'm happy to announce today that our International Climate Initiative is dedicating a large grant to fund climate adaptation and conflict prevention in Africa. This funding will support farmer and herder communities in a cross-border region between Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia to adapt to environmental changes, build resilience, and strengthen peaceful conflict resolution. And of course, it's most important that in a few weeks, the COP30 in Belém commits to strong climate action. In that regard, I want to reiterate that Germany and Europe take our climate targets very seriously and are committed to present an EU contribution, of course, ideally ahead of COP30. We, Germany, do both. We stand by our goal to become climate neutral, and we stand in solidarity with those facing vulnerabilities. Germany is committed to cooperating with all of you to keep the world habitable and to make it more resilient. We are convinced this serves our joint interests. It serves security, freedom, and prosperity. And this is why climate and security is an important focus of our candidacy for the UN Security Council 27-28. Be assured, if elected, Germany will once again play an active and reliable role for this issue on the Council. Thank you very much.